Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Grease Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know we are on a roll today, and we have more stories bringing you guys. You already know who it is. This is Tony Lynch, and I'm the host of this podcast, and we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, dying, and grief, and all the messiness that comes in between it with some amazing people who not only talk the talk, but they are here walking the walk and making a huge difference in people's lives. And of course, you guys already know I have another amazing guest for you guys. If you guys have been tuning in, you guys already know this is episode number 3 that I've done today. And we're still bringing. I got one more coming this afternoon, so don't forget about that neither. And of course, we got more coming during the week. And you guys already know this is a nonstop for me. And just to allowing me to keep bringing these stories to you guys is an amazing gift. Thank you for always allowing me to be able to do this. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say, if you have not already, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you will be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversation that we have, please do me a favor, share it along with them, right? And another thing, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say this is a live stream. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, most importantly, this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Jacquie, to the show. Jack, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing amazing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love this. This is live and everything.
I know, right? We're about to rocket sock them.
Can't take it back with live. You just gotta roll with it.
Oh, it's gonna be great. You know, like I said, like with the audience and everything, they love asking questions. Sometimes they like to sit back and things like that. And I say, hey, enjoy it if you want to, right? You know what I'm saying? If you're curious, ask those questions. We give the opportunities for everyone, right? And of course, we got you here today.
Well, I love questions. I love asking questions. I love receiving questions. I think questions are a way to get information, and information is power in my world.
You already know it's power. Power is wisdom. It's a way for us to understand how to better serve the people that we're serving, right?
Yes, and clarity. Most importantly, it brings clarity. I feel like people want to ask questions, or they're afraid to ask questions, but they're afraid of what people will think if they do ask questions. So a lot of times you can see that somebody wants to say something, but they don't, and they hold back, and then they regret it later. Like, why didn't I say that? Or why didn't I ask that, or whatever? So I don't want to have any regrets, because that's how I live the first half of my life. And I'm definitely not living the last half like that.
Look, I totally understand that. Now, before we get into your journey, before we get into your story, introduce yourself to the audience today. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Jacquie Grillon, just like it says on the screen, and I am a transformational expert. I help men and women or businesses help to identify their challenges that they're going through right now. And we help to break them all down into manageable pieces, and we work through them. And, and I'm a big proponent, as you have to be able to put things into practical application, or it doesn't do anybody any good. You could take a course, you could see a seminar, but if you can't use it in your life, like, what good is it? And so I like to have measurable results. I like to work with people so they can see measurable results. And I'm definitely the person that you're going to call that's going to tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear.
Hey, that's the key to it right there.
Because they're not the same people.
Like, no, I like this guy. She's over here. So I say, oh my God. I'm like, no, that's what you need to hear these things, because for one, I have a problem with people sugarcoat things, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, don't sugarcoat it. Who are you trying to say? Me or yourself?
Exactly.
Right? If I'm in the same room with you, I kind of understand why sometimes you're like, I probably don't want to make him mad. And they don't understand. I'm like the nicest person that you want to be around, unless you eat my gummy bears. They'll take you or something like that. But other than that, I'm a pretty nice dude, right? Now, But you also have an amazing story too, right? So
Well, I've definitely been through some things, that's for sure.
yeah,
I've overcome some adversities.
well, share your story with us. Share your story. Who was Jackie before Jackie became who she is today?
Oh, okay. So to wrap it up in a nutshell, she was a people pleasing doormat that would do anything to get somebody to pick her, love her, and include her. And,
Mm,
a lot of that came from, my upbringing and my childhood. And I just thought that that was kind of normal.
wow.
I don't know how in depth you want me to go there, but like that's pretty much how I was. And I'm clearly not that person right now.
Right. And again, because it opens up the doors to understand a lot more, right? Like people pleasing. Where did that stem from?
Um, Not knowing or not being taught how to meet my own needs. So I needed to go meet your needs to give myself self-esteem and to make myself feel good about myself. It was the only way that gave me self-esteem, and it made me feel like I was useful and had purpose. I didn't know I needed to meet my own needs or that I even had needs because I pushed them down so far away.
Right.
As long as your needs were met, we were good.
Okay. And I definitely can understand that because I know a lot of people have done that and still do that to this day. And, what is okay. So a lot of times I can't say I was a people pleaser, but I was, I was definitely different. I, okay. I was definitely different, right? And what I mean by that, I've always done things to keep me safe.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I've always done things to keep me safe, and sometimes that would include me doing some really bad things to people, right? Because of assumption, because of overthinking, because of life in general, what life has taught me. Like life taught me at an early age that I couldn't trust anyone. So
Yes.
so I was total opposite from you, Jackie. You know what I'm saying? Like I was that individual. Like I'd rather stay away from you than to have you around me because I don't want you to feel bad if I have to throat punch you, right? Type. So and that's where it came from. But also, like when we talk about people pleasing, a lot of people that I've talked to, it stemmed from growing up in a household of sometimes abuse.
Yeah.
Was that the same for you, or was it a little bit
Oh,
different?
yeah, absolutely. I grew up with all different kinds of abuse, right? Abuse isn't just somebody, physically abusing you. There's emotional abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. There's lots of ways you can call something abuse. But basically, my needs were not met, and I was not taught how to meet my own needs. So, like you, I had to create the safety somehow. And because I wasn't taught how to create the safety on the inside, I was seeking on the outside with the
Mm,
people pleasing. That's why I needed you to love me, pick me, and include me, because that was helping to create this false illusion of safety on the outside. So you and I are not different in the respect of we both had a safety issue at the core of what we needed to do. We were living in survival mode and we
yeah,
needed to make ourselves safe. We went about it different ways. Like our presentations and how it manifested was just different. That's all. Just like you have, love addicts and love avoiders. It's pretty much the same wound. It's how it manifests. Some people go crazy
mm,
after people, please love me. And the other ones are like, no, stay away from me because you're going to hurt me. I'd rather be by myself kind of thing, but it's the same wound, and the healing is still the same to come to the middle. Like our healing is still the same, regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on.
okay. I want to add to that, right? I want to begin to add the layers in there so people are understanding that it's not just one thing. There's several things that's compiled on top of it,
Yeah.
compacted into what you may call your body or your mind, right? And the reason being because some people don't understand when you're dealing with certain things, you have a tendency of living from the neck up.
Yes.
And sometimes if you're living in survival mode, you're living from the neck down. No one really knows how to bring the two together because there's often a disconnect, right? And so, say for instance, part of what you and I are both saying, part of it that you can add to it is unresolved trauma, right?
Absolutely. And grief.
And grief. But we'll get to the grief. But the trauma is one of the things because grief tends to come after, or sometimes it comes up during. But I want to break it down to the people so they understand that there's like multiple stages that go along with this. That when we talk about healing or when they have to come and deal with Jacquie, these are the things that you have to understand that has to happen in order for you to get to where you need to get to.
Right.
Right. And like you said, there's no sugarcoating in this.
No.
There's no sugarcoating in this, right? So let's talk about the multitude levels of trauma, from mental abuse, physical abuse, spiritual abuse, and a lot of times emotional abuse, or maybe a combination of all of those different things, compiled on top of this symptom called people pleasing or keeping yourself safe.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so let's dive into those. What are some of the things that can add to that response?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What do you mean add to it?
So the response of people pleasing, we was talking about, adding the traumas in there. What's some of the forms of trauma that people may not think about that can add to that?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just speak to my own, right? So I grew up feeling like I was insane, right? Because that didn't happen. I never said that, things like that. So when you grow up in a household, when you're questioning your sanity, like, yeah, you just said that 20 minutes ago, or no, and I tend to think of myself as an intelligent person. And then I would get responses like, no, that never happened, or you're too sensitive, or, again, when you're a child, if you're questioning your own sanity, that's a problem. And that's most definitely abuse. And it's not intentional. So I don't want to put that out there like, that people do this intentionally. It's all subconscious. It's all hundreds, if not thousands of years of unhealed stuff that we have absorbed from our parents, and they absorbed it from their parents, and ad infinitum, back to millennium of unhealed stuff. And I'm just kind of probably one of the first people in my family that had the pain was so great on my shoulders. I had no choice but to heal. I had no choice but to wake up. It was like, I can choose to die or I can choose to live. But if I'm going to live, I needed to live in peace and freedom and joy. I wasn't going to live the same way, like I said, that I lived the first half of my life. We're not doing that. So, in doing that, to me, I still thought I was living an absolutely normal life. I was an athlete. I think being an athlete was being in survival mode. That was creating safety of something outside of my house. If I'm good at something, I was getting esteem from somebody else. I couldn't do it for myself, but at least I was getting those accolades by either a medal or a trophy or something that made me feel like I was worthy, of being on this planet and things like that. And it's not that I didn't hear "I love you" when I was growing up. My dad didn't really say "I love you" I probably can count on one hand how many times he said it in my entire life up to now. But my mom would tell me she loved me all the time. The problem is that my mom didn't love herself. And because my mom didn't love herself, she didn't know what love was. So I never believed the words that she said based on what I just said to you. When somebody tells you, I never said that, that never happened, and you're questioning all those things, I never believed the millions of I love yous I got. It just didn't resonate in my body.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Because it's that old saying, trust people's actions before you trust their words.
Yeah. And really, I think now more than ever, it is so important. If you're letting life tell you who you are, it's really important to get a solid sense of self, to learn about who you are, what like, what you don't like. Separate your family and your siblings or your husband or your wife or your boss out of the equation and really get to, what do I like? What don't I like? What will I accept? What won't I accept? What's okay? What's not okay? And a lot of people don't do that. They just let life tell them who they are, or at least that's what I did for a really long time. And that's unfortunate, and that's usually what I attract, with customers and clients and things like that. So.
Okay. Well, that makes absolute sense, which makes you very effective in the work that you do because you do have a more in-depth understanding of what that looks like, right? And also to be able to help guide you. What was that?
And how to get to the other side of it.
And you know how to get to that's the beautiful part about it right there. Because what I find, what a lot of times people get stuck and they don't know how to get to the other side of it, right? And so now it leads me to my next question. I want to add grief into this.
Okay.
I want to add some grief into this because you've experienced your own set of grief that, that helped mold all of these different things into what it is today.
Yeah, lots of grief.
Share some of that with us. What are some of the things that you've had experience when it comes down to that?
Okay, so my idea of grief, prior to really grieving and feeling grief and knowing what grief was on a visceral in my body level, was like, my dog died or my friend left or my boyfriend left me, kind of thing. It was very surface level what my idea of grief was. Even like when my grandparents died, like I wasn't the one, crying and bawling or anything like that. In fact, when I grew up, my dad was famous for like, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something to be angry about. So we were kind of taught to stuff that kind of stuff. So if you're not allowed to be who you are, you're not allowed to have a feeling, it's not going to be on the top of the list at all. So once I got conscious, right? And when I say that, I was acting out in all kinds of ways, with addiction and things like that. So once I got sober or conscious and I started having to do the work of learning about myself, but this is way before it landed in a therapist chair, I was having to come to grips with the people pleasing. So my first real guttural level grief was about saying no to people pleasing and then following through on the no of people pleasing. Because if somebody knows you're a caterer for 20 years, they're not going to take no for an answer. They're going to keep coming until your no becomes a yes. When they finally realize that you mean what you say and that you're not the same person anymore, a lot of them left. And when all those takers, and I say takers because that's what they signed up for. They signed up for me people pleasing them. They signed up for me doing all of the stuff that they should have been doing all along. But I set it up that way and I take full responsibility for that. Like I said earlier, I needed them to feel good about myself. And they needed me to do for them so they didn't have to, right? So it was a win-win at the time. It wasn't a healthy win-win. But the minute I stopped doing or giving or whatever that they didn't have to take responsibility for, they all left. That was a lot of people in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So having to grieve that, why are they all leaving? I'm the one who did all the work. Why are they leaving? And that's exactly why they left, because I was doing all the work and they need somebody else to go do the work. I thought that maybe some of them would rise to the occasion and have a reciprocal relationship with me, the give and take, and that, we're both in it together, supportive, loving, things like that. The only kinds of relationships I have today. But it was a rude awakening to find out that 99% of the relationships I was in were one-sided relationships. And I was the one who was exhausted and drained doing all the work. So that grief was heavy. And that grief landed me in a therapist chair, and for very good reason, because it was too big for me to handle. And I did not know what to do with it. And I thought I was going to be alone for the rest of my life. And I had no idea how to deal with that. So that was my first introduction to real grief.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy, because that's another form of It's just another form of grief that sometimes people don't think about, and things like that. Just like you, we talked about this. With those terms, you better stop crying. We'll give you something to cry about. And of course, we got the whole famous, oh, you want to act up, go outside and get that switch, or go get one of those switches off the tree. Matter of fact, get two of them. And of course, we
Oh,
can the smallest one, not knowing that they just set us up. We know this, right?
yes.
And of course, sometimes get out the house and don't bring your ass back until the street
Until
lights go.
dinner time, right? And oh my God, could you imagine? We had the same thing. Like our parents didn't even know where we were. And we liked it like that, and they liked it like that.
Yeah, well, they're our parents was the only generation that had to be reminded. Do you know where your kids are?
Oh yeah, remember that commercial at 10 o'clock?
Do you know where your kids are? It's like, why do you? I look back on it now, like
It's funny
why
now.
do you need a reminder to let people know that you had children? Did you forget about us? Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
But I tell you what, Jackie, that was some of the best times, though, wasn't it?
I do not regret how I grew up or any of the things that I'm sharing with you now, because all of it led to who I am now. So it all needed to go down exactly the way it went down. And believe me, I was not happy about a lot of the pain that I've had to deal with, or the grief that I've had to deal with under the pain.
Right.
But all of it was necessary and worth it. And it led to the depth that I have in my person now, and the strength that I can hold that and be there for others.
Nice. Which leads me to this question: do you think when you talk about addiction and things like that, do you think that was a result of you trying to numb like
Absolutely.
the pain and everything? Because I know a lot of people. Look, I'm a former alcoholic myself, right? And what alcohol did, it just enhanced a part of me, but it also numbed me, and everything. Like I grew up violent. I was a violent dude when I came into my own, and I knew how to keep it secret from my family and from my mom and my dad and things like that. But man, out there on the streets, I was out there fighting all over the doggone place. Oh yeah, you want to fight? And we just do our thing. But alcohol was a way of me saying, and I guess I really, really got into drinking after I was 20, well, maybe 18, 19 years old. And, like I said, prison, 5 years. I got out in 1999 and went right back to the bottle and things like that. And it was my up and down. But I had been homeless so many times that alcohol really just took the edge off of what was going on in my life. Like I could just not care, right? More than what I already did. So when we from your thoughts and everything, what do you think is the root cause of people using drugs and alcohol to cope?
Okay, so my experience of drugs and alcohol, they're a symptom, right? They are a symptom. All the reasons that we drank or drugged or escaped or video gamed or workaholic, whatever it is that you do to escape, all of that is just a symptom of a bigger issue, right?
Right.
So when we get down to the bottom of that, I've been in 12-step programs for 27 years, and I've been in a lot of different 12-step programs. So I've been in AA, Al-Anon, CODA, ACA, you name it, I've been in it. And they all serve and are valuable in very different reasons. I owe AA my life, because without getting sober, like I said, to be conscious, I can't do any of this work. I can't be present for myself, let alone somebody else. And I certainly can't walk somebody through something that, because I'd still be at the bottom of a bottle. So there was nothing I can do. But to answer your question, yes, there are symptoms of pain. There are symptoms of wounds, of those tender spots inside of you, all the places that we've been avoiding. Our work and everybody's work is different. We're all on this planet for very different reasons. Your mission is different than my mission, but it's still the same. I think, my interpretation of why we're all here is to basically come back to yourself, to remember who you are and who you are meant to be, essentially, and just strip away all of those things, the outside noises, if you will. And drugs and alcohol are just, numbing out, like you said, those outside noises. So, and the inside pain, until you're able to deal with it. And it's funny because when you first get sober, or at least this has been my experience and others that I, talk about in the rooms, it's almost as if, whatever you believe in, God, higher power, whatever that looks like for you, maybe you don't even have any of that, and that's fine. But it's almost like you get this grace when you get sober, or you get sober of whatever it is that you need, that you're trying to avoid. So let me back up. There's I want to say it's Pia Melody, and she wrote a lot of books on facing codependency and love addiction and things like that. And I'm almost positive it's her, but I could be wrong. But anyway, nothing's original in this world. But anyway, she said that addiction is defined anything, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be gardening, anything to avoid intolerable reality. So that pretty much probably answers your questions in a lot quicker than I just did.
I love that because I love the fact that you put the detail in there as well, because it does explain a lot. It really does, right? And with the audience listening, there's somebody sitting there right now probably asking that question that you just answered. Like, wow, it's a lot deeper than what you thought. And we're not even scratching the surface on this thing. This is just the things that that we have experienced, and the things that we have experienced, and things like that, right? But I think
some people think about it. Yeah, some people might think the world that we're living in right now is intolerable reality. You know what I mean? And they might not be addicted to anything currently, but whatever it is too big for them in this world. And it could just be like what's happening outside in our world. It doesn't take much to start. And then some people can just drink a couple of beers or do a thing or video game or whatever their addictions are, and be fine. And then others cross the line. I don't know why I crossed the line, but I did. And once you cross the line, like that, there's that old saying, you can't make a pickle back into a cucumber. It just doesn't happen.
I mean, this is very true, but I think there's another side to there that once people really start to understand it and really begin to heal in those different aspects of it. Like for me, I like the pickle.
I love a pickle, but I also love a cucumber. I'm just not a cucumber anymore.
Okay, and now see, I love that you said that because I do love a good cucumber, but when we looking at the analogy of it, right?
Yeah.
It's the evolution of self.
Yes.
It's the you can't go back and be a cucumber, but then you can be a pretty good tasting damn pickle.
Oh yeah, there's lots we could do with a pickle, right?
Sandwiches, I just had to say what early with some pickles on it. It really tastes really good, And I was like, yeah, I love that. But see, I think what a lot of times, Jackie, people don't know how to evolve. People don't understand that there's another form that they can go into. And so with that analogy right there, I want to switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of people don't see themselves in the chaos, right? They don't understand how it's like whenever you're going through something, whatever you've been through, they don't understand it's there to change you, right? That maybe they don't see the purpose in it. Maybe they don't know to add a little bit of cumin powder to it. Maybe they don't know to add a little bit of vinegar to that as well, right? You know what I'm saying? Maybe they don't see all of that, right? But then you got Jackie that comes along and going, you put down the jars of seasoning, like, we're gonna start with the basics first. Basics, vinegar. We're gonna go ahead and pour that on in you, right? And then from there you kind of like spice it up. You do your John Hancock, and it's a beautiful transformation. And so and I think that's where you come in and going. That's why I don't sugarcoat it, right?
Yeah.
It's going to change you.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm here to help you do.
Yeah, and I don't say like I don't sugarcoat it. I mean, I'm from New Jersey originally, right? So I'm a keep it real kind of girl, and I'm not a surfacey kind of girl. So I'm not going to be the one that says, "Hey, how's the weather?" I'm out of that conversation. I want to know what's really going on. And you tell me you're fine, and I know you're not fine, I'm going to be like, "Really? Let's talk about it. Let's go there." But the first part of my life, I feel like it had to harden me and toughen me up. So the next part of my life, like where I'm currently in now, I could, instead of, I have to learn how to trust. I have to learn how to allow, right? Because in the first part of my life, I had to do it all by myself, and there was no trusting or allowing anybody or anything, right? So I became this like hardened little rock that I'm like using as my worry stone as I'm talking to you, right? But the second part of my life, after I've done a bunch of healing and I'm living in it, and I'm really trying to trust what I believe in and walk my walk and stuff like that. I feel like the second part is where the softening comes in. I don't need to be hard anymore. I can be soft. So I can still be a straight, get to it kind of girl, but I'm softer now. I've allowed the water and the wind and all of life lessons to mold and shape me, and with my intentions along with it, and with my guidance and my approval, most of all, because it's me, right? So I have a say in all of it. And now I can trust in life. I can trust that everything is going to work out exactly the way it is. I don't need to have my hands all over it. I can allow life to have its way with me. If I had said that 27 years ago, why don't you just allow life to have its way with you? I'd be like, are you crazy? Like, that would never happen.
And I can relate to that, right? Yeah,
I would get nothing done if I was just allowing life to happen. Sure. Am I going to allow life to make me a paycheck? Am I going to allow life to pay my bills? Like, who's going to take care of it all?
Here's the one part about life that I watch people do exactly what you just said right there. There are some people out there just like, eh, life is what it is, right?
That's fine.
Yeah, look, if that's what works for you to have a life where this is your reality, by all means, who am I to bust that reality open for you?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? It's kind of dangerous too. I did learn that in one of the 12-step programs, right? Was that, I was, after I, got sober, and I was, I wanted to help everybody, right? Because that's what
Mhm.
you do. But that's when you get into the scary part of, sometimes it's scary to help people before they're ready, because it's basically like ripping their security blanket off of them and exposing them to the elements when they're not ready. And that resonated with me, because you know what? Until I was ready, if somebody had done that to me, I would have been like, in a not very nice language, be like, no, like F off, like, no, that's not happening. So I can see that it's dangerous to try and make somebody ready before they are, whatever that is. And so the only thing I can do is be ready and be willing and be available for when they are ready, when those calls do come in. Um, and to, just wish them well in the meantime.
That's very true. That's very true.
And that's
Now,
tough, especially with people you love, or that you share DNA with, that you want to be different. Like, it's heartbreaking, but you have to allow people to you have to trust and allow life and those people that you say you love or care about to have their own process. I needed to have my own process. I needed to fall down 100 times and get back up. And even people who wanted to help me couldn't help me. I had to do that on my own.
yeah. See, I'm right there with you. Like I'm a first look. I tell people this all the time, and I just got on another guy for doing this. He stopped somebody's process, and
Yeah.
I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Man, I can't watch him going there." I know, but what are you doing?
They
And
mean well.
he meant well. When you watch someone going through something and they're not making the healthiest of choices, they look, no matter what choice that you make, you're going to make those choices, and this is part of your story. I'm a firm believer
Absolutely.
in that, right? We both have stories, in which allows us to be who we authentically are today.
Correct.
And had someone stopped the process of us going through hell the way that we did, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing, because we'd have still been trying to figure out a way to complete the process.
Yeah. And you know how dangerous it is? Not that I don't think like in my case it was, but I think about when I was people pleasing hard, like when I first got
Mhm.
sober, right? I just wanted people to love me. It's very dangerous when you're letting other people tell you who you are, because when you are listening to them, when they mean well, and they all mean well, even people who love you, share DNA with you or not, they mean well, but they're not you. So what's right for me or right for them may not be right for me. So it doesn't make it wrong. And that took a long time for me to realize and get with, because I would sell my soul for have, this person, this boss, this friend, just please, you know, love me, that I would take their advice to my own detriment. I abandoned myself so they would stay. And that's where it gets dangerous, because you're abandoning yourself every time that you don't listen to you. That's why, like I said earlier, it's so important to get a solid sense of self, because every time you say yes when you mean no, and no when you mean yes, you're abandoning yourself. You're abandoning that little one inside of you that's like, please just take care of me. And then that little one learns to just not come to you with anything ever again until you work it out later in therapy.
Yeah.
Save yourself thousands of dollars.
Yeah, yes, and these things do happen though. These things do happen, and I think what you're explaining in the beginning is a high mentality, and what I mean by that is that you have all of these people within your community that's quick to tell you, you know, how to do this and how to
Yeah.
make you think
You
and
should
things
do
like that.
this. You should do that. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?
Exactly. And it's a shared thought pattern, right, within this high community, because
Yeah.
birds of a feather flock together. All right. And so what ends up happening is that you start to go around, and this is where it gets real tricky. And if you're not careful, you
Yeah.
tend to get these traits with you from other people. So
Yes.
well, I think we talked about this before. You could be around someone like, say, for instance, I've seen people that I'm gonna talk about my own experience. You
Okay.
know, I realized when I got to a point in my life and I was changing, and I was going through a very significant loss, very very significant, knocked me down on my knees. Hell, they curled my toes up, and I realized that I didn't know who I was. Reason being, I was everyone else that I ever encountered.
Yes.
I had picked up habits and thought patterns and words and
Yeah.
actions from other people that I had been around, right? And so, when I realized that all of these multiple sides of me was not mine, I began to have to not only do the work to get rid of that, but I had to go back and figure out who the hell I really was. And I
Exactly.
think I shared this with you, right? I developed a technique of dreaming backwards. I taught myself how to dream backwards in my life. Two things. I realized that the brain, my mind had been trying to protect me from things, and so it covered up a lot. And so during dreaming, it's like you can see through like how you can see my green screen right now. If I move my hand a certain way, it kind of fizzes out, right?
Yeah.
And you know that there's something back there. You just can't see it, right? So when I began to dream, I realized that there was something else behind the green screen. Like what I'm looking at in my dream is not real. So I would have to force myself to be truthful, because for one, I wanted to know why. I wanted to know why I was the way that I was, and why I don't know myself the way that I should. And so what I ended up doing, I ended up stripping everything down to the bare minimum. I now remember every conversation I've ever had since I was 3 years old, which is crazy, right? Some would say that's impossible. No, I still remember the doctor that gave me birth, Dr. Brown, little short, stubby old man with some curly hair. You know what I'm saying? Well, he wasn't old at the time. I think he was probably around 30 years old. He was a young black guy at the hospital. He was the one who gave birth to me, so I still remember him. And that's crazy. But then I had to go a little bit forward to where I met my grandma, and I began to listen to hear words that she used to say to me. And in the beginning, it was very muffled, and I didn't know. And then I began to say, you know what? I need to hear this more clearly. And it was my grandmother telling me, "You're beautiful." And well, not beautiful. She used to say, "Baby boy, you're handsome," while she was holding me in her arms. "Baby boy, you're loved." And all of these different things that you never really paid attention to. So as we get older, it molds our character, right? Into who we are supposed to be. Like there was nothing influenced by it and things like that. But it got me back to basics so I can find out who I was in order to be my authentic individual self. So, and that's what I mean. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you got a whole process that you've used as well.
Okay. So in remembering, having to go back, right? That's like in therapy, like now they have all kinds of things where they can do like EMDR and trauma and all this other stuff. I had to kick it old school, right? I had to do it the long way. I was in therapy for a decade. I thought I was going for 20 minutes or, maybe a couple months. I did not think I would be staying as long as I was, but it was so valuable to have a safe place to go, to help me to create the safety within myself, right? All those little broken parts of me, right? Those little traumatic, every time I had a trauma, right? All these little pieces break off, right? So they have what they call these sub personalities, right? So there's like,
Mhm.
like 50 little Jackies running around, and each one served a purpose, just like drugs and alcohol served a purpose until it didn't, right?
Right.
So every time something would happen, and I wasn't able, it was too big for me, Jacquie, to deal with. One of these little pieces would be like, I got it, and would just like, jump on board. And then I'd be unconscious while they consciously are running my life. And that was pretty much what was happening, right? And so they were running the show. But what you have to basically remember is like all of these traumas happened before I was 10 years old. So you got a bunch of little ones basically running your adult body. So that's not, a good place to go or a good place to be. And so in therapy, they have you go and sit with each one of these little ones, right? And you sit and you develop relationships with, and you start knowing who they are and that they're there. And at first, I didn't know I had 50 little Jackies inside of me, in some things, and in some 12-step programs and some whatevers, they'll call it like your inner child or your inner teenager. But the reality is there's like a million different pieces if you have a lot of traumas.
Right, right.
One serves as a purpose. And the idea of it is to get to know each one of these little personalities that are you. They are you. And to know and to find out, what they need, what their job is, what they protect you from, their little protectors, what they protect you from, what they've done, and to get to know them and to thank them for everything, because they basically handled everything that you couldn't. So they would come on board to take care of that for you in very good fashion. And it doesn't mean that they didn't make a mess of things, because let's face it, they're under 10. They're going to make a mess of things because they certainly did. But they did the best they could to protect you. Their whole job is to protect you, each one of these things. So to develop a relationship with them enough where they start to trust you. And that takes a long time, because when you abandon yourself all the time because you're seeking it outside yourself, it's not going to be like, oh, hi, little one. Do you trust me now? That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You have to basically listen to what their needs are, meet their needs, listen to what they want. Some of them were like, I want to go swing on the swings. Easy. I want ice cream. You have to remember, it's going to be all like under 10 or whatever your traumas are, age group. And some of them were like, I want a pink boogie board. Well, grown-up Jacquie doesn't even like pink. And then the other one was like, I want these little hearts. I don't even like hearts. And if you look at my house now, there's like little hearts. I might even have one. I do. Sitting right here.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
It's a pink heart. But they're all over my house, little crystal hearts all over the place, because little parts of me that I've developed relationships with and made safe relationships and created the safety within me trust me to do their jobs now. So that's where they talk about integrating all of these parts into your heart so they can finally relax. Because let's face it, their job was never to do all of those things. Their job was just to be a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, and they never got to be that. So if I'm doing my job right and I'm doing my work right, I've helped to hold space for them, to tell them and to get them to trust me enough to tell me what they need, to listen to what they want or need, and to meet that need. And then for them to trust me enough, to relax enough, to like be integrated into my heart. And that's how you do the work in therapy. Nowadays, back then, like I said, they called it like subpersonalities. I think today they call it like internal family systems or parts work or something like that. And in ACA, they do a form of it, right? There's a lot of different resources, just about doing all of that. But that's basically, my work in a nutshell, is that you're basically going to all the places inside of you that you don't want to go, because those places are screaming at you to love them, pick them, include them. Everything I was looking for on the outside was them trying to get my attention. And I had no idea.
Wow, I love that. I love the fact that you're so in tune with yourself and understand that aspect of it, right? Because I think a lot of people do get confused and not listen to that part of themselves, right?
Because they label it like it's their ego or it's their this or it's their that. And the whole point, especially in the beginning, is to make sure that they know, even if it is your ego, right, that you're never, ever, ever trying to get rid of them. You just want to, like, you all want the same things. You all want me to be happy. So let's get on the same train, to make that happen. But we have to work together, because, split apart, splintered was not working for me. It worked until it didn't, just like alcohol and drugs worked until it didn't. But it was never a solution. It was just a Band-Aid, just like everything else. This is a solution, because once healed, you're never getting rid of them. So if I have a situation where I need this little girl who wants to rage to come out, because I don't really do that anymore, but if I need her to come out, I know exactly who to call. She's really good at it.
I can definitely see that. Because, I think we all have that. We have that one little army inside of us. And I can relate to that. And the reason being, being someone who's ever always fought my whole entire life, right? I know what it's like. I know what it's like to go through wars, but also know what it's like to develop a sense of peace with yourself.
Yes.
As you get to grow. And Shane Sal said it best. The person who is very capable of doing the worst damage is usually the one who is the most humble, because although they are capable of doing great damage, they choose peace.
Yes.
And it's the story of the warrior in the garden, right? A person in the garden, it's pretty much found himself and it's pretty much said, I don't need to be this unless I have to be. And it's just like the inner part of you. See, once you learn how to contain that, you don't need it all the time. But those that look at you, like, I can look at you and go, it sits right there. And then the blink of an eye, if you need it, it doesn't take me nothing to pull that up. It's what happens when you pull it up. What are you going to do? I know what I'm going to do, but what are you going to do when it comes up, right? And so you have control over that. And now you have a smile, because now you know what it took for you to get to where you are. And that makes you not only an exception, but very, very strong-minded and will-minded to be the person that you are today, to go out into the world and look at other people and go, let's sit down, right? And pretty much tear everything apart in order to put it back together the right ways. And I think that is truly a beautiful thing. That is truly a beautiful thing.
I agree. Peace and freedom. Like, once you get a taste of what real peace and freedom is, I mean, I don't even know how, when I first even got sober, I was 32 years old. And you can do the math now, but the last thing I wanted was peace. I came from like chaos and drama, and I still love that when I watch it on TV. I don't want that in my house, and I definitely don't want that in my life. I will listen to other people's, help them to find their peace and their freedom and their joy on the other side of the pain of that. But like, that's not something I really want to sign up for in my everyday life anymore. But I didn't know that I would ever even crave or want peace, let alone freedom or joy or anything like that. I thought I knew what joy was, but until you walk through some pain, you don't know what real freedom or joy really is.
That is very true. That is very true. And as you were saying that, the thought of John Wick popped in my head. It really did. John Wick popped in my head. I'm totally I'm totally imagining you running through like, oh yeah, you want some of this? You're like, I don't want the chaos in my house, but I'm watching on TV. Don't make me go John Wick up your butt.
Oh my God. I used to get off on rage. Like, I had so much rage in my belly. And first of all, I didn't even know it wasn't even half mine. Like, it was, like I said, like you absorb your parents' stuff when you live in the same house with them. Right. And like I said, all those hundreds of years of unhealed stuff. But when I started dealing with my rage, I used to get off on rage. Like, I would yell at somebody. I'd be like, yeah. And another thing, and another thing, and another thing. For some twisted, sick reason, it was the only time I ever felt powerful. It was the only time I ever told somebody what I really thought of them, because I didn't have to people please them. I didn't have to be whatever. Like, I felt really free, but in the twisted, toxic way. Like, it wasn't a good freedom at all, or a good peace, because all I did was hurt somebody else. I emotionally vomited on them everything that I should have been stating and releasing and all of that along the way. But in therapy, she used to say, what you're doing is saving it, storing it, and blowing up. And I go, no, that's my dad. And she's like, no, that's what you're doing. She said, instead of naming it, claiming it, and dumping it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that you could do that. Because I was so terrified that if I actually told somebody how I really felt about something, they would leave. So it would just like store up for 20 years. And then I would like emotionally vomit on you.
Right. So
I love that. I used to be like, and another thing, and another thing, another thing. It's so interesting that I don't do it anymore. But it doesn't mean that I don't get angry or mad. I'll state it in the meantime, and I don't need to win. I just need to tell you how I feel about whatever is happening. That's all.
I love that, because I think a lot of people, when they begin to do that, it does becomes a trauma response. I have a friend of mine. She's up in age now. She's like 52 years old. Well, I'm not really up in age. I'm not too far behind her.
Hey, I'm older than all of you.
Like, you know what? Don't be bragging. Okay? Don't be bragging and carrying on. But no, I think it's beautiful for the simple fact of these are things that we do recognize, right? Yeah. And once you can recognize them, you can you have to address them. You have to heal them. You have to learn different forms of dealing with things. But a lot of times, what I think is that people are either raised by narcissists or are narcissists, and they choose the latter of their narcissistic tendencies, which is victimhood.
I suffered from that for a long time.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if somebody's going to need to make you their victim, when you're living in a household, you're going to sign up for the job, because you didn't have any other place to go. So it took a long time to even think that I was playing a victim. Like, I didn't think I was playing a victim. I actually was a victim. But what I didn't realize is I kept setting myself up into those areas. Because I just let it play out unconsciously, instead of, again, learning who I was and that I didn't need to do that. And I didn't need to be the victim all the time. I can, actually go out and be free.
Yeah. And there's a difference from what you said to, because when you've been put in an environment where this is constantly happening, of course, you are you do become the blunt of everything that comes down. And so, there's a part of you that understands that, hey, this don't feel good.
No.
And so when you understand that it doesn't feel good, it's not that you're pretending to be a victim, you are a victim. Right. Now, there's a difference, because a narcissist, although they're not victims, they are attention seekers.
Sure.
Right? so they will tend to do things, and then when you call them on it, they will pretend to be the victim to turn it around on you, to gaslight you and manipulate you into feeling bad for them, right? In
Right.
order to get that attention, because most narcissists don't care what sort of attention you give them, whether it be good or negative. A lot of times they want the negative because it gives them a reason to be the victim, to come back at you and justify their actions without any sort of consequences that come along with that. So there's a difference, right? And so I was so used to being a villain in everybody's stories, right? And although I never even signed up to be a villain, I just got to a point and said, if that's what you need, then I guess that's the role that I'll play. And I never even understood how to play that role in people's lives, but I got pretty good at it over time. You know, I had to go out and read a whole bunch of Batman comic books, but I understood what the villain was supposed to do. And although I didn't like what the villain did, I figured, and that's the story that you need to tell in order to feel good about yourself, then you by all means, you go ahead and tell it. Even to this day, Jackie.
You have to, whatever story you're telling yourself today is what's keeping you safe. You know, like right now, currently on this conversation, I don't even know what I'm full of crap about right now, right? Because I'm protecting myself from whatever that is that I'm not willing to deal with or look at, right? There's plenty of things that I know that I don't want to look at that are conscious, but there's so much that I probably have no idea. You know, I have no idea where I'm full of crap right now, but I will. And when it is brought to my attention, because I cannot do anything about anything, I cannot address anything in my life unless I'm aware of it, right? We can't fix it if we're not aware of it. We can't be held responsible for something if we're not aware of it, you know, and now I am aware of it. And when you come from a victim, you know, villain, victim, you know, kind of place or whatever else, like, you know, my experience with narcissists they're very broken people. They will never take responsibility for anything. And there's no use in trying to get them or to even get revenge, because the fact is like you said, they get off on your pain. So if they get off on your pain, that's another level of something that's a little bigger than me that I want to be around. And if therapists are basically saying there's nothing they can do to help them because they intellectualize everything, they don't feel a feeling, will never do the journey from the head to the heart that you and I are doing currently. They will never, they're not capable of it. And you have to know when something's bigger than you, that it's just, you just got to call it what it is. Like anybody who's trying to get off on your pain, all I can say is run the other way. Run the other way. Unless you have a solid sense of self, you are never going to win. We need to win. So let them win and go away. Let them win and just go away.
And see, I want to add to that, because again, when I say this, I'm only talking from the perspective of someone who does this work, right?
Right.
And I may just have a different thought pattern than that, but when most people do come into this path of mine and allows me to work with them or walk with them, and for the most part, they are here for my pain. They're here to understand how I got to where I am.
Of course.
And so for me, pain is just another aspect of a gift that I was given. And in order for me to be effective in a field that I'm in, I have to truly understand what that pain is like. And in turn, maybe I have to experience a little bit of their pain so I can be able to walk with them to guide them through theirs.
Right.
And so it's a give. It's a give and give. You know, give me what you need. Give me what I need in order to help you, and I will give you something back in return from that. So, and I'm very careful about when I speak about that, because maybe somebody may understand, maybe they don't understand. But pain has been my gift.
Me too.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes in order to be effective in what we do, we have to be able to match our pain to someone else's.
Absolutely.
Right? And that can be very draining for an individual. And that's what I mean. Sometimes sometimes I have to be the villain in someone else's story because of the pain that they feel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Now I see what you're saying. First of all, I'm the villain in everybody's story who does not want to look at their own stuff.
right,
I am
right.
always going to be the bad guy. They are always going to blame me for what they're incapable of doing. If
There
they
you
need
go.
a
Yeah,
placeholder for their pain, they will put it on me because I'm an easy target as far as that goes. And when I say they're putting it on me, they're not literally putting it on me, but they need to blame me to make themselves feel good. It doesn't
yeah,
make it true. It just makes it I'm the easy scapegoat or the easy out or the whatever. My mere presence, because I've done some work, and this isn't like an ego thing, just the amount of light I emit into the world right now, I don't even have to say something or anything in the presence of certain people, and I'm triggering somebody. I haven't even opened my mouth and I'm triggering somebody. I haven't even done anything and I'm triggering somebody. And I've had a lot of really great, supportive, loving teachers along the way, and they basically said, "Then you're doing it right. If you're triggering people, if you're being blamed, if you're getting blamed and scapegoated and whatever, and that's kind of been my life, like you're doing it right. Like it's the opposite of everything I've been told my whole life." But now I get it on a soul level. I'm not doing it. That's their work and their pain. If I need to be a placeholder for their pain, not that I'm accepting the job, because I certainly am not. But if that's what they need to do to make themselves feel better, go right ahead. But it doesn't make it true. It just makes it what they need to make themselves feel better at the time. And believe me, I get it. I don't know what I told myself that, living out of my car was okay at the time, but I had to tell myself something to make it okay at the time, right?
right.
Now, no matter what anybody says, living out of my car is not okay. Like there's nothing I can say to myself to make that okay. There was a time when I did make that okay. And then I didn't even have the car to live out of. So, hey, but that's a whole nother story. But we all make up stuff in our head to make whatever it is palatable. And that is their journey and it is not mine. But I will be their villain, scapegoat, whatever. If that's my lot in life, I'm fine with it. It's not that I'm taking that on. So I don't want anybody out there in the line to think that, because I am not. I have my own work. Thank you very much. I'm not accepting applications to take on other people's pain anymore. I've done a lot of work to separate everything I was absorbing that wasn't mine, and I gave it all back to the people that they can do their own work or not. And you know what I realized? Most people won't do their own work, and they won't do their own work.
Yeah.
Always going to be the placeholders of somebody's pain. Always.
And once you realize that that's the natural order of some people's lives.
That's it.
And it's okay. It's okay to step out their way. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to be like, oh, let me step over here.
Yeah.
You can go right on ahead and and do that. When you get ready, you figure it out. Right?
And that's the thing. Like, be okay. Somebody wrote, I'm sure it's been all over Instagram or something, but like, let's normalize or be okay with being misunderstood.
Yeah.
Period. End of story.
And that's the beautiful part about it. Wow, you have such a strength that that is very admirable, and the work that you do. Just for the sheer fact that you are here and you're doing the work that you're doing, that says a lot about a person. To have the heart that you do and the strength that you do, that says a lot, and that's very commendable. Which leads me to 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
2 more questions. First question would be, Jacquie, how can people find you?
Oh, okay. Well, those are easy ones. So I'm always growing and evolving, right? So right now I'm growing and evolving out of my old website into a new one that's not completely done yet. So we have a couple different places you can reach me at. So my current website is JacquieGrillon.com. And my new website that I'm still building, but there's still a little free download if you want to, sign up in there, is JacquieInspires.com.
I love that. And you sent me over the information, so it is in the YouTube channel below. If you're looking on YouTube, go there, check out her links, and you are on social media as well. So guys, go check her out on the social media. And if you love these conversations, you already know what she's bringing. She's no nonsense about this stuff. Y'all better come correct. Don't come at all, because she's gonna put it all out there on the front screen for you. All right. So just be prepared. You know what I'm saying? And this is what we need in the world. We need more people to not sugarcoat things, but tell you, hey, this is fucked up. Okay. And that's just the bottom line to it. You know what I'm saying? I know some people may get offended by that, but maybe that ain't the type of therapy that you need. Maybe you need somebody to talk to the baby doll in you. You know what I'm saying? But if you like what she's saying, then guys, go check her out, man. You know what I'm saying?
Get on my calendar. There's just get on my calendar and we'll have a chat. It doesn't cost anything. I will always make time for anyone, and nobody's telling you have to buy anything or sign up for anything. Let's just talk about what's going on or whatever else. Maybe there is a simple, easy way to break it down or what have you. And I'm not scary by any means. I'm just direct.
That's it. And again, that's what a lot of people need. What happens too many times, and this is why when I went through my most profound loss, this is why I appreciate the men that showed up in my life that had gone through something similar.
Absolutely.
The first guy came to me. I remember the day I went home after my son passed away. My next door neighbor had his wife came home, or his wife was home. She saw me pull up, and she comes out, and the first thing she's looking, she's like, "Hold on, where's your son? He's always with you." And I looked at her, and the look in my face, because they had just lost their son previously.
Oh no!
And she looked at me, and she just went, "Oh no!" She knew, right? And she went in the house. She called her son. Called her husband. Her husband comes home, and he says, "This is going to be the hardest damn thing that you do." And she looked at him and was like, "Why you?" He goes, "No, he needs to know this will be the hardest thing that you do in your life." And it's those words right there that help prepare me, or somewhat prepare me, for the road that was coming.
Right. He told you the truth.
He told me the truth. And I appreciate that to this day. And so I have that way of saying, this is going to be hard. And depending on the loss, I never try to overrule anybody else's loss. I just tell them this is going to be the hardest thing that you do.
Yeah.
In your life. Because I watch people and I read people's energy. I realize that that's the key to it. It's going to be the hardest thing that you do. And so now, which leads me to my second question for you, Jacquie.
What's that?
Second question would be, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, well, listen, I already know that my superpower is, and I don't know if it's a superpower, but it's my superpower, is that I can see through nonsense. Like I can cut through all the noise, and I can see things, like you said. Sometimes when you're in the middle of stuff, you can't see it and you need an objective opinion. Mm-hmm. I just have, my superpower is that I can just like cut through all the noise and break things down into very practical, easy pieces. So you can next step it, because I think that people don't want to deal with some of the things in your life because it's just so big. And when it's so big, it's easier to be like, no, I can't, and there's plenty of things that I don't want to deal with in my life as well. I'm not exempt, but when you're looking with somebody else, it's a lot easier to be objective because you're not in it. You can see the whole, you have a different vantage point. You could see it clearly.
Right.
I would say that, and my ADD is my superpower, and I never thought I would say that, but it is, because I've been shamed about it my whole entire life, but it's actually been a blessing when I think about the gifts that it's afforded me.
Right. And you remind me of another friend of mine who said exactly the same thing. He said, you know what, my ADD is my superpower. As a matter of fact, Ari Sarep. So if he's listening right now, that brother right there, his superpower is his ADD. He's like, man, you have no idea. He's learned how to use it in a way that will blow your mind. And so listening to you, I'm like, there it goes. Yep, you just confirmed it all.
Get a
now,
sense of self, people. Get a sense of self. Then you won't let anybody define you.
yeah, there you go. There you go. And now with that being said, right, and I know you got things that you have to go out and do today, maybe just enjoying the weather, stuff like that. So I want to, for everyone, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast, right? And then hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation I just had with Jacquie. And again, her information is in the YouTube channel. So go there, check it out, go to a website, tell her that you saw on the podcast. You guys already know that up through the conversation, you guys are going to be taken care of. And of course, allow me to keep bringing these great, amazing conversations with amazing people to you guys. It's a huge honor and a privilege. And I want to say thank you to my guests. Jacquie, for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be in a space with you and just allowing me to go on this journey with you as a curious visitor in your world today. Thank you so much for this honor and privilege. And for everyone else, guys, I got another one coming up in about another hour and some change. So please tune in for that one as well. This will be our fourth one for the day. So hopefully you guys are enjoying these conversations. Yeah. And don't forget to subscribe. All right. Don't forget to subscribe and do me a favor. Maybe these conversations aren't for you just yet. Share with somebody who can definitely benefit from. All right. And so with that being said, guys, love you. Thank you for always allowing me to support you and bring this to you. See you guys in the next one.